Hey guys, what is going on? Sharp thinking here. So good friend of mine, Eric, over at Eric Be Like on Instagram, sent this guy to me. This is a North Arm Skaha 2. It is a carbon fiber model. Very, very nice. I think this is the most premium version of the knife that is made by North Arm. It is out of British Columbia, so I am going to make an exception for this knife. Typically, all I cover on my channel are USA made knives. At least as of recently, I've really been pushing to keep it USA made. I can make a separate video on that if you guys want, but it's just my own preference. So I guess we'll do a size comparison. Here it is against a Strider SNG and a Spyderco PM2. So a little bit smaller than those two. Here it is against a Hinderer XM18 and a Microtech LUDT. Almost the same size as the Microtech, a little bit smaller. And then we'll do a couple more. Here it is against the Chris Reeve Umnumzon and the Chris Reeve Sabinza 21. So kind of on the smaller side, however, it is still a great knife for EDC, at least for me. I find it to be a great size. Here it is against a SOCOM, and not really super comparable, but a Microtech stitch. So yeah, let's just talk about the knife. The moment I saw this knife, I knew it would be something I would like. I wasn't sure about the manufacturer. I didn't really know that much. Obviously the grooves in the blade is kind of what most people notice first about the knife. I'm going to talk about that. But yeah, as soon as I saw it, I kind of knew it would be a knife that I would at least want to try and would be willing and open to carrying. It's a very traditional drop point blade with a very simplistic handle. All of these things are things that I look for in a knife that I want to carry. I like simple knives, for the most part. Of course, there's exceptions, but stuff like the Sabinza or like your typical XM18, just very simple stuff. So, starting off with the handle, it is some of the nicest carbon fiber I have ever seen in my life. I can't find a void on the thing, except for, it's a little crumb, except for right here, but I think that may have just been like a chip that happened through use or from carrying it. So, very, very nice carbon fiber. This knife weighs damn near nothing. Carries incredibly well. One thing that I noticed as soon as I held it in hand is it's a dream ergonomically. It almost feels like a fixed blade in the hand. And I don't mean that in terms of heft or in terms of like strength, because this isn't like a hard use knife. It's not going to be something that you really want to beat on. I'm sure it could take a fair bit of use and abuse, but I don't think it's primarily designed for that. What I mean by that is, look at how wide these handles are. In comparison to the PM2, it's significantly thicker than the PM2, but it does something that the PM2 doesn't do. And that a lot of knives don't do. It is extremely contoured. So it's almost as if these are just scales that belong on a fixed blade. That's really what they feel like. And because of that, the knife is super comfortable. I've not used it super hard because it's not my knife, but I have used it a little bit, and it's very comfortable. to bear down on. There's no hot spots. Really, if you squeeze on it super hard, you can get something out of the clip, but it's not that bad. Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to talk about the clip too. The handles, I just think, are fantastic. Not only are they beautiful, but they're also very, very comfortable and pleasant. They're good in a large variety of grips. Not that you really are going to be gripping your knife like this too often, or in the reverse grip. I've never actually held a knife in use in a reverse grip, but it's nice to be able to grab a knife however you want to and it still be comfortable. It's a luxury that the more knives you handle, the more special you realize a trait like that is in a handle. Talking about the clip, I love the clip. It's like a Spyderco wire clip. Retention is better than any wire clip I've seen from Spyderco, like on the Sage or the Manix 2 Lightweight. It's not a super deep carry, which I like quite a bit. It gives you kind of something to hold on to when you pull it out of the pocket. I live in Ohio, so people typically don't care about knives. So it's nothing I really have to worry about. But I know some people were disappointed in the fact that it is not really a super deep carry clip. I don't mind it. The liner, it's a stainless steel liner. Lockup is good. It's not going to fail. At least this one won't fail. I did some light palm strikes. Again, not my knife, but it feels very secure. No play. A lot of times when people say their knife has no play, they're really not bearing down on it enough. This knife has no side-to-side play and no up and down play. Also, if you pull back on the knife, you don't get any lock slip, no stick, nothing. So, and I'm not saying stick is bad. I don't believe that lock stick is bad all the time. But in a steel lock, you really shouldn't have too much stick. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Again, I could make a separate video on lock stick. Lock, easy to disengage. The detent is very good. I'm not really an action guy, but you guys can see it's pretty snappy. I'm going to try to pop it open with one hand and have it not deploy. So we're going to let's do 5 attempts. Okay. There's one. So, not very easy to do. I'm going to try to get it to fail again. There we go. So, you really have to be up on the flipper in order to get it to not deploy. Yeah, again, I'm not an action guy, but I'm also not opposed to a knife opening every time you go to open it. I think that's a great thing. That's kind of why I like the LUDTs. I don't really care about how a knife closes. This one is super smooth. It's drop shutty. Again, not my thing, but major compliment here. I think the action is possibly one of the least impressive things about this knife. And I don't mean that in a bad way because the action is great. Let's talk about the blade. Thin behind the edge. Dude, fucking thin behind the edge. This knife is thin behind the edge. So nice to finally say it. I did a video on this. I criticized it because it wasn't thin enough behind the edge. It feels like all I do now in my videos is criticize knives for not being thin enough behind the edge. This is very thin behind the edge. It's not on the level of the LUDT where it's under 10 thousandths behind the edge, but it is maybe the second thinnest knife that I have right now. And that's just because I have an LUDT. If I didn't have an LUDT, it would be number one, I want to say. My striders are, or my strider is pretty thin behind the edge. Actually, it kind of feels the same as maybe like a SOCOM in this region. Up towards the tip, it gets a little bit thinner. It is very consistent behind the edge. Another thing that I really appreciate about the knife. That's something that I actually grew to care about in carrying the Sebenza and the Umnumzan. The Umnumzan is more consistently ground behind the edge. The Sebenza gets a little bit thicker towards the tip. I prefer when it's consistent throughout the entire edge. That way, when you're sharpening, you don't have to like match the bevel and fuck it all up. Also, it doesn't look weird. Yeah, great shape to it. It's a nice drop point, very well finished. These grooves in the blade, yes, they are interesting. Do they affect performance? No. In hand, they actually are almost, they're barely perceptible. If you took your nail, it's not really like a heavy texture at all. It's not like the Kershaw, what was that thing, the Zing, where it has like deep grooves. These are very light, just like a Grimsmo or like a Rask from Norseman. Very good. No issues from that. S35EN, I haven't used it enough to give you guys a full rundown on how that performed. But so far, I like this knife. It is on bearings. It's not my favorite thing, but I think for a knife like this, I'm not going to criticize it too much. It kind of makes sense. It's not meant to be some sort of heavy, used and abused, tactical folder. It kind of comes across more as like a gentleman's utility knife. That's, I would say on the large size for like an office knife. But yeah, definitely a lot of good stuff going on here. Ergonomically, I did find this, and I forgot to talk about this when I was discussing ergonomics. This flipper, you can see it stance back a little bit, so it points this way. That's not always a problem, but in this knife it is. If you're really choked up on here, the jimping here is quite sharp and will leave nice little marks on your pointer finger. So, not great, but also if you choke back like this and just cut, you kind of avoid the situation altogether. So all in all, I really like this knife. I'm going to have to pick one up, probably in G10. I am a sucker for blue G10 and brown G10. I don't know why. I don't know. I'm a weird guy. I think the carbon fiber is beautiful. However, I don't know. Actually, I might go with the carbon fiber. It is such nice carbon fiber. It really feels fantastic. It's not like slippery at all. It's kind of maybe a little bit slicker than the smooth G10, but I don't mean that in a bad way. It's definitely not Cold Steel G10. I can say that. But it does have a nice feel to it. Again, very light in the pocket. You almost don't notice this, even though it is a wide knife, because of how light it is. Blade stock, pretty thin. I think that also makes sense, considering what the knife is designed for, which is, honestly, in most cases, I don't even think guys are going to use these, which is kind of a shame because it is such a well thought out design, and it's executed very, very well. So I don't know. I just don't see guys using them. I'm going to ask Eric for permission to really use this. If he says no, I'll just buy my own, and it's not going to be a big deal. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. So far so good with this. Well, I'm gonna ask Eric actually how long I'm allowed to keep this thing. But yeah, I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.